Hey guys, tonight we're traveling way back, before Wi-Fi, before cozy homes, before comfort even existed. Imagine a world where every day was a fight for fire, food, and survival. The truth is, most of us modern humans wouldn't last a single night out there. Before we dive in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Section 1. The Split. Roughly 750,000 years ago, deep in the heart of Africa, a momentous yet utterly silent event unfolded. Somewhere amidst the sprawling branching forests and the endless sun-drenched grasslands, a population of hominins, our distant ancestors, quietly parted ways. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic schism, but rather a slow, almost imperceptible divergence, like a river gradually carving two new channels through soft earth. One line, over countless generations, would slowly, so slowly, become the Neanderthals, hardy and robust, perfectly adapted to the colder climes they would eventually inhabit. The other, tracing a different path through the intricate tapestry of genetic possibility, would become us. No drums announced the moment. No one carved the date on stone. There was no grand declaration, no conscious decision. Only the gentle shuffle of generations, each life a tiny step forward, carried the change, like a river rounding a bend you cannot see, its ultimate destination still hidden from view. Centuries passed like breaths, each one a silent exhalation into the vastness of time. Millennia folded into one another, soft as blankets settling over a sleeping world, each layer adding to the deep, silent history of our shared past. This was the quiet beginning of a journey that would span nearly 750,000 years. Section 2. Homo heidelbergensis. From this quiet, ancient split, a distinctive form of human ancestor emerged, one we now call Homo heidelbergensis. They were a formidable presence on the ancient landscape, standing nearly as tall as you, perhaps a little leaner, with hips narrower than ours, but eyes set wide under heavy, pronounced brow ridges that gave them a serious, watchful gaze. Imagine them moving through the ancient African landscape. They hunted antelope, their keen senses honed by generations of survival, tracking prey across vast plains under a relentless sun. As dusk settled, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, they would gather white roots from the earth, their children trailing behind them, curious and watchful, much like ducklings following their mother. Stone flakes, meticulously crafted and incredibly sharp, hung at their waists on sinew cords, always ready. These weren't just tools. They were extensions of their will, used to scrape marrow from bones, to process hides, or to shape wood for countless purposes. Night after night, they curled near the embers of their fires, the crackle and warmth a primal comfort against the vast, unknown darkness. Above them, the stars, those same stars you see tonight, wheeled in their slow, majestic dance, seemingly unchanged through the millennia. Generations rose and set, each life a quiet pulse, a fleeting flicker against the immense, indifferent dark, contributing to the slow, steady rhythm of evolution. Their world was one of immediate needs, of survival, and of the profound, silent connection to the earth beneath their feet. Section 3. The first whisper of us. Then, somewhere near 430,000 years ago, something incredibly subtle, yet profoundly significant, began to stir. Small mutations, tiny changes, no more than a handful of letters in the colossal genetic book, a book millions of pages long, began to collect. These weren't sudden, dramatic shifts, but rather microscopic alterations, passed down almost unnoticed from parent to child. Skulls, over generations, rounded a fraction higher, almost imperceptibly, brains tucked forward a little more, gaining precious room behind the forehead. This slight expansion wasn't just about size, it was about potential, creating space for the development of abilities that stretch beyond the immediate need of tomorrow's meal, allowing for more complex thought, planning, and abstract reasoning. No one noticed, of course. Life went on. Mothers still hummed soft, ancient melodies to their infants, their voices echoing through the trees. Fathers still taught their sons where to find the best flint, passing down skills essential for survival. The rhythm of daily life continued, unbroken and seemingly unaltered. Yet, the whisper had begun. A new lineage was quietly forming, a subtle divergence within the larger human story. It was a lineage that would one day call itself Homo sapiens, a species capable of incredible innovation, profound introspection, and the very act of pondering its own deep past. The seed of us had been planted, slowly, patiently, germinating in the fertile soil of time. Section 4. Sima de los Huesos, far from those African grasslands, in a deep dark cave in the Atapuerca mountains of Spain, lies a silent testament to this ancient family tree. It's a place called Sima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. Here, in a chamber accessible only by a vertical shaft, 32 individuals rest shoulder to shoulder, their bones stained brown as river pebbles from millennia of mineral-rich earth, telling a profound story. They were not us, not Homo sapiens in the modern sense. Instead, they were cousins, branches on a different prong of that ancient fork, a lineage closely related to the Neanderthals, who would later roam these same European landscapes. Their DNA, carefully extracted and painstakingly analyzed by dedicated scientists, still carries the faint echoes of that ancient separation, a genetic song whose chorus, in its deepest notes, repeats every 750 centuries, reminding us of our shared, distant origin. Imagine the scene of discovery. Excavators, working by the dim, focused lamplight, brushing away millennia of accumulated dust, layer by painstaking layer. Each gentle stroke of a brush is more than just archaeological technique. It's a handshake across time, a tender connection with those who came before. It's a gesture soft enough not to wake the sleepers, but firm enough to coax their ancient secrets into the light of our understanding. These bones speak of a profound connection, a shared humanity that reaches back through the ages, reminding us that we are all part of a much larger, older story. Section 5. The cooling world. As these ancient dramas unfolded, the world itself was in flux. Far to the north, immense ice sheets thickened, growing vast and heavy, reshaping continents with their slow, grinding power. Africa, the very cradle of humanity, swung between periods of lush, wet green, where lakes swelled and rivers flowed abundantly, and long stretches of dry gold, where deserts expanded and life clung to dwindling water sources. Forests, once vast and continuous, shrank to isolated islands of greenery, precious havens in a changing world. Grasslands, in turn, rolled outward like an endless sea, stretching to distant horizons. Under these shifting, often challenging skies, our ancestors walked. They were nomads, guided by instinct and observation, following the scent of rain on dry soil, moving with the seasons. When game migrated, driven by the changing availability of food and water, they followed, their survival intricately linked to the movements of the herds. When berries ripened and darkened on the bushes, they gathered, knowing intimately the bounty and scarcity of their environment. Change arrived, not as a sudden crisis, but as a deep, ingrained rhythm, slow and inexorable as moon-waxed tides. It was a constant pressure, a subtle sieve, favoring those who could adapt, innovate, and cooperate. Brains that could plan ahead, brains capable of complex cooperation, and those that could speak in nuanced sounds. These found each day slightly easier, slightly more survivable than those that could not. Selection hummed along, a patient, implacable, yet strangely gentle force. It wasn't about the strongest in a brute sense, but the most adaptable, the most connected, the most capable of navigating an ever-changing world. This constant subtle pressure sculpted us, generation by generation, into the beings we are today. Section 6, 300,000 years ago. And then, on a morning that likely looked much like any other, under a sky that had witnessed countless dawns, a woman in ancient Africa gave birth. The child that entered the world that day carried a subtle, yet profound, difference. Its skull was just a little more vaulted. Its face tucked just a little further beneath the brain case. The difference, perhaps, was no more than the width of a finger. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift in form, but it was enough. This child's descendants over many generations would carry the first full package of traits we now label as anatomically modern Homo sapiens. It wasn't a single birth, of course, but a series of such births. A gradual refinement across the vast African continent. These early modern humans arose not in one place, but in pockets, scattered across the immense landscape, from Morocco's Jebel Irhoud, where some of the oldest Homo sapiens fossils have been found, to Ethiopia's Omo Kibish and South Africa's Florisbad. Different groups emerged. Each group was completely unaware of the others, separated by vast distances and formidable natural barriers. Yet, they were bound by the same slow, patient turning of genetic pages, a shared evolutionary trajectory. This was not a singular event, but a widespread, simultaneous blossoming of what it meant to be truly human, marking a critical threshold in our long, winding story. The world was quietly filling with our kind, even as we were just beginning to understand what that meant. Section 7. Bodies like ours. With these subtle internal changes came external refinements. Our ancestors' teeth, for instance, became noticeably smaller, a telling clue that they were no longer relying solely on raw, tough foods. This shrinkage betrayed a diet that included softer, more easily digestible fare, most likely cooked food. The mastery of fire wasn't just for warmth, it revolutionized their diet, making more nutrients available and reducing the energy needed for digestion. Chins, a distinctive feature of modern humans, began to protrude, offering structural support to smaller jaws, and those heavy brow ridges, so prominent in earlier hominins, gradually retreated, like a tide pulling back from the shore, leaving a smoother, more vertical forehead. But perhaps one of the most significant, yet hidden changes occurred beneath the skin. The voice box, or larynx, sat lower in the throat. This seemingly minor anatomical shift was a game changer, granting room for a wider range of vocalizations, more distinct vowels, and ultimately, the capacity for complex, nuanced language. It meant more lullabies, more intricate storytelling, more detailed instruction beyond the purely physical. A profound shift was happening in their inner world. We see evidence of it in the shells drilled with tiny holes, worn as adornments, or the ochre rubbed smooth on hide, used for decoration or perhaps ritual. These weren't just about survival. They were about symbolism, about expressing something beyond the immediate. An inner life, rich with meaning and connection, had truly taken root. At night, they lay close, backs against one another for warmth and comfort, listening to the familiar crackle of thornwood in the fire, the distant eerie whoop of hyenas echoing across the plains, and the soft, reassuring hush of their own breathing. In these moments, they were not so different from us, finding solace in proximity, in the simple act of being together. Section 8. Fireside Lessons. Fire was more than just a source of warmth or a tool for cooking. It was a teacher, a companion, and the very heart of their emerging culture. In its flickering light, faces were illuminated, bonds were sealed, and the long, intricate threads of stories began to unspool in low, murmuring voices. Children learned vital lessons not from textbooks, but from the quiet recital of their elders. They learned which berries to avoid by hearing Grandma's gentle, rhythmic warnings, her voice rising and falling like the wind in the tall grass, weaving tales of safe and unsafe plants. They learned the movements of the stars, the habits of animals, the geography of their world, all passed down under the watchful gaze of the night sky. Each retelling of a story, each shared piece of knowledge, was a thread, weaving a rich, intricate fabric of memory and understanding. This collective tapestry was far too vast, too complex, for any single mind to hold alone. It was a communal act, binding them together. Thus, culture began, not as a sudden, dramatic spark of genius, but as a gentle, persistent glow, growing grain by grain, like sand accumulating into dunes, slowly but inexorably shaping the landscape of human experience. It was the birth of shared meaning, of collective wisdom, and of the profound human need to connect through narrative. Section 9. The Exodus, First Wave. Then, some 210,000 years ago, a restless urge, perhaps driven by changing climate, or simply the innate human curiosity to see what lay beyond the next horizon, began to stir. Small bands of our ancestors, feeling the pull of the unknown, wandered northward and eastward, making their way toward the continent's northeastern edge. They looked across the Red Sea, narrow and turquoise then as now, a glittering barrier separating Africa from the vast landmass of Eurasia, perhaps during periods of exceptionally low tide or when sea levels were slightly lower due to glacial expansion. They walked across, sandals wet with coral sand, making their way into the Levant, the gateway to Asia. Fossils found at Apidimar in Greece whisper of this early push, a tantalizing hint of an even earlier boulder foray. It was like a toe dipped into wider worlds, a tentative exploration beyond the African cradle. Most of these intrepid pioneers, however, left no living trace in our modern genetic makeup. Their lines, though brave and pioneering, eventually twined into dead ends, their descendants absorbed or simply fading away. Yet, the trying itself mattered. This early migration was a rehearsal, a test run, a lesson written in vanished footprints upon the ancient earth. It showed the inherent drive within Homo sapiens to explore, to expand, to see what lay just beyond the visible world. Section 10. 120,000 years ago, time continued its slow, steady march, and the world shifted again. Around 120,000 years ago, climate conditions eased once more. Green corridors, ribbons of fertile land, opened across the arid Sinai Peninsula, inviting passage. Game animals, following the renewed vegetation, moved along these pathways, and our ancestors, ever observant and adaptable, followed them. This second wave of migration gained footholds in what is today Israel and Arabia. The evidence is clear. Skulls unearthed from caves like Skul and Kafse in Israel display the unmistakable hallmarks of modern humans: round brain cases, distinct chins, and small teeth. These were us, unmistakably. They hunted gazelle, swift and agile creatures of the plains. They gathered almonds, a rich source of sustenance. And in a poignant echo of our shared humanity, they buried their dead with care, sometimes adorned with shells of glycymeris, sea-tossed jewelry brought from distant coasts, perhaps as offerings or tokens of affection. This act of burial, often with grave goods, hints at a developing sense of ritual, of remembrance, and perhaps even of belief in an afterlife. But the world remained a place of constant change. Then, as always, the ice winds returned. Deserts expanded once more, reclaiming the green corridors. The settlements thinned, populations dwindled, and the frontier of human expansion rolled back like a rug being pulled. Africa, once again, enfolded the story, sealing it in silence, waiting for the next opportunity to venture forth. Section 11, meeting the cousins. Further north, in the colder, more rugged landscapes of Europe and Asia, our robust cousins, the low-browed Neanderthals, stalked ibex through pine ridges, their stocky bodies perfectly adapted to the chill. Eastward, in the high, ancient caves of Asia, another enigmatic relative, the Denisovans, meticulously picked milky quartz blades, their presence only recently revealed through fragments of bone and ancient DNA. All three lines, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans, shared a common great-grandparent, a deep root in that ancient African split. Yet, 400,000 years of separate evolution, of adapting to different environments, had dressed them differently. The Neanderthals, with their barrel chests and powerful limbs, were built for the cold, their bodies conserving heat efficiently. The Denisovans, though less understood, appeared tall and perhaps adapted for the thin air of high altitudes. And we, Homo sapiens, were lean and agile, well suited for the heat and varied landscapes of Africa. One day soon, their paths would inevitably cross, genes would mingle, sometimes through peaceful encounters, sometimes through more complex interactions. The vast branching family tree of humanity would graft itself into new colors, creating a richer, more diverse tapestry. But for now, each group lived inside its own horizon, hearing only the echo of its own drums, its own stories, its own struggles and triumphs, unaware of the profound connections that lay just beyond their sight. Section 12, Technology of Patience. Back in the African heartland, where our lineage continued to refine itself, progress was measured not in leaps, but in quiet, patient increments. People learned to grind ochre, a natural earth pigment, into crayon red sticks. They weren't yet painting grand cave murals, but they were coloring their world, perhaps marking hides, decorating bodies, or creating simple symbols, long before any cave wall would receive a handprint. This was the nascent stage of art, of self-expression. They also learned to have slim, meticulously crafted stone points onto light shafts, transforming simple spears into more effective hunting tools. Sometimes, they even tipped these projectiles with poison, carefully extracted from beetle larvae, a subtle but deadly innovation that increased their hunting success. This wasn't a technological revolution that happened overnight. Hunt success rose, but only slightly. A marginal improvement that over centuries was enough to nudge populations upward, allowing more individuals to survive and reproduce. No patent office recorded the leap. No grand pronouncements were made. Only scattered points, found today in river silts, tell the silent tale of this persistent, incremental progress. Progress, in those deep times, moved at the speed of childhood. Each day felt the same, a familiar rhythm of foraging, hunting, and tending to the young. Yet imperceptibly, bodies lengthened, skills sharpened, and the collective knowledge deepened, almost unseen by those living through it. It was a testament to the power of slow, persistent innovation. Section 13. The Long Summer. Between 80,000 and 60,000 years ago, the global climate eased again, offering a period of relative stability and warmth. Monsoons strengthened, bringing life-giving rains. Lakes swelled across the vast expanse of the Sahara, transforming arid lands into vibrant, fertile territories. With these more favorable conditions, our ancestors spread across Africa with renewed vigor. They moved west to the Atlantic coast, south to the very tip of the Cape, and east to the Horn of Africa, exploring and settling new lands. As populations expanded and became more isolated by geography, languages began to diversify. Much like birdsong at dawn, each valley and region tuning its own unique syllables, its own distinct melodies of communication. This was the blossoming of linguistic complexity, a foundation for richer cultural exchange. Trade routes, too, began to expand. Obsidian, a prized volcanic glass used for sharp tools, was carried across hundreds of miles. A flake of obsidian originating from today's Ethiopia might end up at the mouth of the Nile, a tangible proof that strangers in these ancient times sometimes greeted strangers with gifts and trade, not always with blows. It speaks to an early form of diplomacy, of mutual benefit. Generations passed, each leaving behind a delicate layer of ash from their fires, fragments of shell from their meals, and the intangible yet enduring echoes of their stories. Each layer, no thicker than a fingernail, contributed to the deep archaeological record, a quiet archive of humanity's persistent journey. Section 14. The true exit. This time, the pulse out of Africa would not withdraw. This migration, unlike earlier, more tentative forays, was destined to succeed, to spread our species across the globe. Following shorelines rich in shellfish and marine resources, small groups of Homo sapiens skirted the southern coast of Arabia, then continued eastward into India and onward, a relentless, patient expansion. Wherever they camped, they left behind distinctive tools, finely crafted blades, no bigger than a thumb, elegant and pressure-flaked, deadly when hafted onto bamboo shafts. These microliths were a hallmark of their sophisticated technology, adaptable and efficient. At a site called Jwalapuram in India, a remarkable piece of evidence ties these migrants to a specific moment in deep time. Volcanic ash from the colossal Toba super eruption, which occurred a staggering 74,000 years ago, blankets these tools, providing an incredibly precise, quiet timestamp written in dust. It shows that our ancestors were already there, enduring one of the largest volcanic events in human history. The march continued, patient and persistent, moving forward tide by tide, generation by generation, propelled by an unseen force of exploration and survival, pushing ever further into the unknown. Section 15. Interlude. A night in South Asia. Imagine one such night, tens of thousands of years ago, on a beach of black volcanic sand, somewhere along the vast coastline of ancient South Asia. The air is warm and humid, carrying the scent of brine from the ocean and the sweet, heavy fragrance of jasmine from unseen blossoms. Coconut fronds clatter gently overhead in the soft night breeze, a natural percussion to the rhythmic hush of the waves. A woman sits by a small, flickering fire, her fingers nimble and practiced. She threads cowrie shells, smooth and pearlescent, onto a fiber cord, perhaps destined to be a necklace, a bracelet, or an offering. Her children, half asleep, lean against her thigh, their small bodies warm and trusting. Beyond the reef, where the waves break softly, torches of resin flicker on outrigger canoes, tiny points of light dancing on the dark water. Men are out spearing squid that rise to the surface, their bodies gleaming like silver coins in the torchlight. It's a scene of quiet industry, of communal effort. No one in that small group knows they are pioneers, that their journey will shape the future of an entire species. They only know the comfort of tonight's fire, the taste of the fresh catch, and the hopeful swell of tomorrow's tide. Above them, the familiar stars turn slowly across the vast, inky canvas of the sky. The Pleiades, that shimmering cluster, sinks slowly towards the western horizon. Someone hums a lullaby, a melody older than any city, younger than the moon itself, a sound that has comforted countless generations, connecting them all in a timeless chain of human experience. Section 16. Into the company of others. By 50,000 years ago, our intrepid pioneers stood at the threshold of new worlds, the vast untamed expanse of Europe and the mysterious depths of the Asian interior. Here, they encountered other human groups who had long made these lands their home. Neanderthals, with their heavy brows and powerful builds, watched from limestone ridges, their eyes curious, perhaps wary, observing the arrival of these new, leaner humans. Traces found in cave floors, alternating layers of tools and hearths from both species, tell a subtle story of alternating visits, perhaps even shared hearths, moments of cautious coexistence. But the story goes deeper than mere coexistence. Genomes, recovered from a tiny child's finger bone, found in the remote Denisova cave in Siberia, reveal a truly astonishing truth. Love, or at least a liaison, had indeed bloomed across these ancient human divides. This child's mother was Neanderthal, her father Denisovan, a direct genetic link between two distinct human groups. Such meetings, while perhaps rare, were profoundly significant. Each encounter, each mingling of genes left a delicate filament of DNA woven into the human tapestry. These ancient genetic echoes persist even today, woven still into the billions of living bodies across the planet, including, very likely, yours. It's a powerful reminder that our family tree is far more intricate and interconnected than we once imagined, a testament to the ancient bonds that shaped us all. Section 17. Replacement, not conquest. Within a few thousand years of these encounters, the numbers of Neanderthals began to dwindle. This wasn't a sudden cataclysmic event of war or conquest, as once popularly imagined. Instead, it was a slower, more subtle attrition, a gradual fading. They faced challenges that Homo sapiens seemed better equipped to navigate. Smaller populations, which made them more vulnerable to environmental changes and disease. Patchier ranges, meaning they were more spread out and less interconnected. And perhaps a less flexible culture, making adaptation to rapidly changing conditions more difficult. The last of them huddled near Gibraltar, at the very edge of the European continent, looking across waters that must have felt wider and more isolating with each passing season. Their fires, once burning brightly, dimmed, one by one. Hyenas, those ancient scavengers, moved in to pick through their abandoned hearths, marking the end of an era. No epic annals marked their final disappearance. No grand histories were written, only the quiet folding of one branch on the human tree, allowing another to leaf out more fully. The earth, in its vast indifference, kept turning. 41,000 years ago, 40,000, 39,000, until their footsteps were only fossil shadows, whispers in the deep past, leaving us to ponder their silent passing. Their legacy, however, lives on, woven into the very fabric of our being, a quiet reminder of the rich tapestry of human diversity that once graced our planet. Section 18. The creative explosion. Simultaneously with these demographic shifts, a breathtaking blossoming of human creativity exploded across the globe. Pigments, vibrant reds and blacks, bloomed on cave walls from the remote island of Sulawesi in Southeast Asia to the profound depths of Chauvet in France. Lions prowled in ochre, captured with astonishing vitality. Bison, heavy and powerful, floated across charcoal canvases, imbued with a spiritual grace, and hands, pressed against the rock, left their negative space like ghosts saying, "We were here." A primal declaration of existence. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about expression, about making meaning. Bone flutes, carefully crafted from hollowed bird bones, carried pentatonic scales, haunting melodies that echoed through the caves. Whistles, made from vulture wings, played notes we still recognize, notes that resonate with the very lullabies we sing today. Our ancestors also decorated themselves, adorning their bodies with beads of elk canine, polished fox teeth, and luminous amber. These were not merely ornaments. They were symbols of status, identity, and perhaps even spiritual beliefs. Trade routes, once confined to local areas, now spanned continents. Baltic amber, originating from northern Europe, reached the distant shores of Greece. Mediterranean shells, once gracing southern beaches, were found in the heart of Germany. The world, through these connections, began to shrink. And as the world shrank, minds widened, stimulated by new ideas, new materials, and new interactions. This was a true awakening of the human spirit, a testament to our profound capacity for art, music, and connection. Section 19. Edge of the World. By 35,000 years ago, the relentless human journey had pushed into the coldest, most formidable landscapes. People reached the vast, open Russian steppe, a land dominated by mammoths and the biting winds of the Ice Age. Here, they built ingenious shelters. Huts constructed from massive mammoth tusks and bones, draped with skins, providing essential protection against the brutal cold. These dwellings were heated with bone fires, which, due to the high mineral content of the fuel, glowed with an ethereal blue light, a strange and beautiful comfort in the frozen darkness. Mothers, with an enduring tenderness, chewed tough seal hide to soften it, making pliable, warm boots for their toddlers, ensuring their little feet were protected against the icy ground. Grandfathers, with patient hands, carved intricate ivory horses, small enough to cradle in a palm, perhaps toys, perhaps talismans, imbued with meaning. Northward, the immense, gleaming ice sheet stretched, an impassable barrier. Eastward lay a vast, featureless blank, a landscape that would one day be called the Bering Land Bridge. They waited there, perhaps unknowing of the profound geographical changes that were about to unfold, waiting for the intense cold to deepen, to lock away so much water in glacial ice that the seas would drop, revealing a path to a new world. Section 20. The Crossing. During the height of the last great glaciation, a period of intense cold that peaked around 24,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened. So much of the Earth's water was locked away in colossal ice sheets that global ocean levels plummeted, revealing vast tracts of land that are now submerged. Between Siberia and Alaska, a new landmass emerged, a broad corridor of grass and dwarf willow, teeming with life. This was Beringia, the fabled Bering Land Bridge. Families, driven by the hunt and an innate curiosity, followed migrating reindeer herds across this newly revealed land. Perhaps in the spring, when the sun circled the sky for 18 hours, casting long, pale shadows across the tundra. On this new continent, they found no human voice, no echoes of familiar tribes. Instead, they encountered an array of magnificent, unfamiliar creatures. The towering mammoth, the graceful camel, the swift cheetah, all thriving in a landscape untouched by human presence until now. They moved south, navigating an ice-free corridor that snaked between gleaming shields of ice, colossal glaciers reaching into the sky. This incredible journey led them deep into the Americas, reaching today's USA by 16,000 years ago, and pushing all the way to Chile by 14,000 years ago. Again, there were no headlines, no grand announcements of this monumental achievement. Only the quiet crunch of feet on gravel under starlight older than memory, a testament to the enduring human spirit of exploration and adaptation. Section 21. The Final Frontiers. By 12,000 years ago, the human journey of discovery and settlement was nearing its global completion. Canoes, crafted with ingenuity and courage, nosed into the turquoise waters of the Caribbean islands. Each paddle stroke a comma in a sentence still being written, marking the arrival of humanity in these remote havens. Seafarers, skilled and daring, skirted the rich kelp forest highways down the Pacific coast of the Americas, anchoring their vessels in sheltered coves of California, Mexico, and Peru. These coastal migrations represent an astonishing feat of ancient navigation and adaptation to marine environments. Inland, other groups threaded their way between retreating glaciers, emerging onto the vast plains where immense herds of bison darkened the horizon like living clouds, providing an unparalleled bounty for those who learned to hunt them. Every valley explored, every island settled, every ridge crossed carried the same quiet, enduring refrain: build a hearth, tell a story, raise the children, sleep. It was a universal pattern, a testament to the fundamental human needs for community, narrative, and rest, repeated countless times across the newly populated globe. Section 22. A pause for breath. Let's rest here a moment. Let the weight of these vast millennia settle gently around you. Feel the familiar weight of your blanket, the comforting hush of your room. Outside your window, if you look up, those same ancient stars that watched those mothers chew hides for boots, that guided the first explorers across continents, now watch over you. Nothing is rushed in this deep story. Nothing was ever rushed. Evolution, in its profound wisdom, is a lullaby sung one heartbeat at a time, one generation after another, a gentle, ceaseless unfolding. Let that slowness, that immense patience, seep into your very being. Section 23. The agricultural turn. Some 11,000 years ago, a new chapter began, spurred by another shift in the Earth's rhythms. Climate stabilized, becoming so consistently warm and inviting that wild wheat on the hillsides of Anatolia, in what is now Turkey, grew knee-high, swaying richly in the breezes. It was likely women, keen observers of the natural world, who noticed a profound pattern. Seeds spilled accidentally beside their hearths, warmed by the embers, sprouted into unexpected harvests. This simple observation sparked a revolution. They stayed. They began to cultivate these wild grains intentionally. They built round stone houses, solid and enduring, plastering their floors white as moonlight, creating permanent homes. Children, no longer endlessly following nomadic parents, learned to grind grain between stones, the dust rising like gold in the late sun, a symbol of their settled lives. Villages swelled into towns. Towns over many generations grew into cities whose ancient walls would one day cradle the very books you might read, the very stories that entertain your bedtime hours. Yet even now, deep within our bones, a primal memory lingers, a whisper of the savannah, Our dreams still flicker with the ghost of running antelope, a testament to the millions of years spent as hunters and gatherers. Section 24. Crowds and calendars. With farming came surplus, an abundance of food that allowed for more than just subsistence. This surplus freed some individuals from the fields, allowing for specialization. With specialization came hierarchy, and eventually, kings, ruling over increasingly complex societies. With the need to manage resources, track harvests, and record lineage came writing, pressed into clay tablets, etched onto stone. Genealogies, once held in oral traditions, stretched, broke, and reknit into written records. Pharaohs in Egypt raised monumental pyramids, symbols of their power and their connection to the divine. Traders, daring and resourceful, carried tin and wool across vast seas, connecting distant lands. Caravans, laden with precious spices and silks, bore their treasures through scorching deserts. Yet, for all this burgeoning complexity, each newborn arrived with the same ancient brain, still exquisitely shaped by the demands and rhythms of the Pleistocene. Each infant was still soothed by the same fundamental rhythm. Suck, swaddle, rock, hush. Lullabies, those universal melodies of comfort, carried the same minor thirds heard in the Ice Age caves of Europe, connecting generation to generation in an unbroken chain of sound. Time, in this new agricultural era, stacked like cedar planks, fragrant with the history, patient in its unfolding, building the foundations of the world we know today. Section 25. Written echoes by 3,000 years ago, the art of writing had spread and matured, capturing the wisdom and anxieties of early civilizations. Scribes in ancient Egypt, with their reeds and ink, meticulously inscribed advice on papyrus. Among their timeless words, we find echoes of that enduring parental instinct. When the baby cries, sing softly of the river, a tender instruction to soothe and connect. In India, the ancient lullabies invoked the moon, not just as a celestial body, but as a comforting lamp in the night sky, watching over sleeping children. In China, the moon became a silver ship, sailing silently through the heavens, carrying dreams. Greek nurses, guardians of ancient traditions, hummed hexameters, the rhythmic meter of epic poetry, to their charges, perhaps instilling a love for language from the cradle. Viking mothers, living in a harsher, colder world, intoned protective runes against night trolls and unseen dangers, weaving magic and comfort into their nightly routines. All different, yes, in their specific cultural forms, but all fundamentally the same. A gentle tether, a soft whispered spell to keep the darkness kind, to reassure the young, and to connect the human heart across the vastness of time and space. Section 26. The globe. Knit, the pace of change, once glacial, began to accelerate dramatically. Ships crossed oceans with increasing frequency and speed. The advent of steam and later air travel shrank continents, turning vast distances into mere hours. Radios and then televisions filled nights with voices and images from distant lands, collapsing geographical barriers. The human story, which began with a scattering, a diaspora across the globe, now entered a phase of reconvergence. Genomes that had parted ways in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago, spreading and diversifying, now met and mingled once more in bustling, vibrant cities like London, New York, and São Paulo. The ancient genetic echoes, those whispers from the past, resurfaced in unexpected ways. Neanderthal snippets of DNA, inherited from ancient interbreeding, might be found contributing to the unique talents of a violinist. perhaps influencing dexterity or brain structure. Denisovan echoes, carried by hardy populations, might confer an advantage to Sherpa lungs, aiding respiration in high altitudes. The old story of human groups scattering, meeting, and mingling continued but under new names: immigration, globalization, and always love. It is a testament to the enduring interconnectedness of humanity, a vast living tapestry woven from countless threads of ancestry. Section 27. You enter the tale, roughly 750,000 summers and winters, countless generations after that quiet, almost imperceptible fork in the genetic road. You were born. Your first cry, that primal sound of arrival, echoed the same fundamental chord hummed in ancient caves, on vast plains, and by campfires beside frozen seas. It connected you instantly to every human who had ever lived, a sound that transcends time and culture, your mother's steady heartbeat, a rhythm as old as life itself, lulled you in the womb and in her arms. Your father's gentle palm cupped your skull, a skull rounded and refined by 300 millennia of fine-tuning, of slow, patient evolution. Every human who ever lived, every ancestor stretching back into the deepest mists of time, contributed in their own way. They prepared the nest of the world, the intricate web of culture, knowledge, and genetic inheritance that caught you, that cradled you, and that continues to shape who you are. You are the living embodiment of this epic, ancient story. Section 28. The Unbroken Thread. From the woman threading cowrie shells on an African beach, her hands skilled and patient, to the trader stringing lustrous Baltic amber, his eyes scanning distant horizons, to the grandmother knitting tiny booties by the soft glow of an LED light, her love a timeless warmth. A single, unbroken thread stretches. It's a thread woven from generations, from shared experiences, from the very DNA that connects us all. There's no snip, no knot, no break in this continuous lineage, only the steady, rhythmic twisting of strands, accumulating strength and beauty over unimaginable stretches of time. You hold it now, between your drowsy fingers, this ancient, living thread. Feel its softness, its incredible resilience. It will hold. It has always held. And it will continue to hold, connecting you to everyone who came before and to everyone who will come after. Conclusion. Night benediction. 750,000 years have whispered their story, a quiet, meandering tale of our origins. They will whisper tomorrow and tomorrow's tomorrow, for the story of humanity continues to unfold, moment by moment, generation by generation. For now, let the whisper fade into your own soft breath. Let the dark behind your eyelids be the cave where every ancestor keeps a candle of stars, a gentle light illuminating your dreams. Sleep gently, dream slowly. The tale continues, but you may rest. Good night.